Ripped from the headlines. That's NBC's description of a recent Law and Order SVU episode that looked at sexism in the gaming world. The detectives investigate the kidnapping of a female game developer who has also been the target of online rape and death threats. Here's a clip.
Fair warning, we'll make sure that her raped and mutilated corpse is on the front page of every feminist blog by next week.
That slut Raina deserves all the pain that's coming to her. Her game is derivative, mind-numbing garbage. And if she and her social justice warriors don't leave gaming now, we will make them.
We can't trace where these are coming from.
They uploaded through the dark net, so no.
That was a clip from Intimidation Game, a recent episode of the TV series Law and Order SVU. Well, in lots of ways, that episode hit home for Brianna Wu. She is the co-founder of the video game studio Giant Space Cat. She has also been one of the more public targets of what's been called Gamergate. Gamergate's an online movement that harasses and threatens women, particularly those who have spoken out about sexism in the video game industry. Brianna Wu recently wrote about the Law and Order SVU episode and her experience of harassment in a piece for Bustle.com. And she joins me now by phone. Hi, Brianna. Welcome back to Q.
Thank you for having me.
So what goes through your head when you find out that Law and Order SVU is going to make an episode about online harassment?
Well, you played a clip just now. There was one of the death threats that I got word for word. So I can't tell you how surreal it is to, watch, actors play this on a popular TV show. I hope it's okay to kind of spoil the episode, but the character based on me and Anita and Zoe ends up being sexually assaulted in the episode and quits game development. So,
sorry, just to interrupt you there. That's
right.
Anita Sarkeesian and Zoe Quinn.
Zoe Quinn. These are three of the other women that have been targeted by Gamergate most prominently.
Yeah. So just to be clear, you were never contacted directly by the show. They didn't run this past you or talk to you about your experience directly.
That's correct. They did a piece with Mashable where they talked about how they studied the death threats and, kind of the media circus around what happened to me, but they were legally prohibited from doing that.
So, you said that this is like a verbatim threat was on the show. What are the other similarities between that episode and the experience that you and Zoe Quinn and Anita Sarkeesian experienced?
Well, they kind of patterned a video that was based off one of my death threats with a man wearing a skull mask. I also have a lot of female employees that work for me. Just the overall tenor. It was very similar to our lives. I had one friend of mine that said it seemed to be based about 70% off me, about 20% on Anita, and about 10% on Zoe, and that felt about right to me too.
Right. Well, and there's even like little details, like Anita Sarkeesian is known for wearing her hair pulled back and big hoop earrings, and the character on the episode actually had the big earrings and the hair pulled back tight. You were on Q in October when the threats first began. You even had to leave your home because your address was made public online. Have things changed at all since you were last with Q in October?
No, and this is what's frustrating. This is ongoing, and it's kind of like the media here in game development had. They spoke out for about a week, and then they moved on and became silent again on the issue. So, this is still going on for me, for Zoe, and for Anita. The president of Sony Europe came out last week and said, Gamergate was terrible. Operative word being was, and I think people don't understand this is still going on.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think this was just one of those kind of juicy stories that hits the media and then it fades for the next thing? Or have people in the game industry, aside from yourselves, not taken it up in ways that you feel are appropriate?
Well, something I think is really important to understand is Gamergate is just a symptom of a disease. And the disease is this industry is so dominated by men in ways it doesn't understand. And that includes the press. There's a very popular game site, Game Informer, that has 17 out of 18 of their editors are men. So, the truth is this just isn't a high priority for them. And, they kind of had to be pressured by stories in, the New York Times and The Guardian to even address this in the first place. So it's very simply not their mission.
Well, you've said that the nature of some of the messages that you get feel like the online threats could translate into real life danger. How do you distinguish between what you say, okay, this is nasty and awful, but I'm not afraid of it, and what, this sounds really serious to me?
Well, I want to be clear. Every one of them frightened me because it adds to this online mob that, could or could not, erupt in violence. But, like any reasonable person, I look at the threat. I ask myself, does it seem credible? I show it to my team, and, we kind of evaluate that. I think it's important to note my company, Giant Space Cat, had to pull out of PAX East 2 weeks ago because of the number of death threats that we have.
That's sorry, just for people that don't know, that was a big video game festival in Boston, right?
Yeah. Yes, it is. Right here in Boston. It's happening in 2 weeks. And, that's a really big deal when the women that work for me don't feel safe and I have to cancel major press events with the game coming out. And, just to kind of tie it into the Law and Order episode, something that really bothered me seeing the character that the character in the show that was based off me and Anita and Zoe was she didn't care about her employees. She was willing to kind of launch her game anyway. And that's the exact opposite of how I feel. I really love and respect the women I work with. One is going to have a child in 2 months. And, I can't ask her to go into a situation that feels unsafe.
Well, and so obviously then this in addition to being the kind of harassment that takes a psychic toll, this also has a toll on your creativity and business, I'm assuming, in terms of...
Yes.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say absolutely it does. I now spend at least a day, sometimes 2 days a week, dealing with harassment and law enforcement, trying to get these people prosecuted. So it's a huge strain on our company. My co-founder Amanda Warner had to take a paid leave last week because she was just so overwhelmed by the negativity coming at us all day long. I myself am about to take a 2-week vacation because I am just burnt out by dealing with all this psychological terror all day long.
And did you go into gaming at the beginning because you wanted to change things? Like, was this even on your mind that this would be the kind of thing you'd be dealing with?
To tell a very quick story, my best man at my wedding in 2010, I remember having a conversation with him about Jezebel, and I'm like, I'm just not a big fan of Jezebel.
Jezebel's the feminist website,
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And I'm like, I think you should just do your work and people will leave you alone. And my views on this have they've steeply changed in the last 5 years because, people here may not want to admit it, but this is an industry that is terribly sexist in ways it doesn't understand. And it's not that the men that work here are sexist, it's that they have so much unconscious bias from the kind of frat house mentality of games that they're just simply unaware of. So, I got into video games to make games. And what I've found as I've been here is I have to speak out on women in tech. It's a question of whether or not I can have a career.